Hey, Shannon, can you hear me? I don't think you can hear me yet. Okay. I'll put it in the private chat. It is Wednesday. You made it midway through the week. It's a beautiful thing. And last I checked, things were not going well for Coco Gauff, who began her quarterfinals match in the French Open at about 4 o'clock this morning. We're at 6:10 now in the Central Time Zone in the United States of America. It is the Chris Duel Show along with Shannon Salty Sweeney. Shannon, what is happening this morning? How are you?
I'm doing all right, sir. Yeah, we thought we would be able to come in and congratulate Coco this morning, but it's not looking great.
Is it over yet?
17-year-old. I would say it was over earlier if it's not already officially over now. But nonetheless, a 17-year-old in the first Open making it that deep. I think if anything, maybe experience got the best of her today.
Yeah, and I was tracking it on Twitter because I couldn't find it.
Being mean, man.
Well, they're mean. They're unbelievably mean now. They're calling her a choker, and other Twitter people are horrid. But early, like, you know, I checked Twitter at like 4:35 this morning, and I was thinking, okay, let's see how she's doing. And apparently it did go final. I'll give you the score here in a moment. But apparently early on in the first set, she was looking great, but let that get away. Apparently she lost the first set 7-6. In a tiebreaker, it was actually 8-6, but it's officially a 7-6 loss in the first set. She loses the second set 6-3. So that's it. She to Barbara Krejcikova. I'm probably mispronouncing that, but I do my best at 6:12 in the morning. Barbara Krejcikova of the Czech Republic. Do you have a better pronunciation on Barbara, Shannon?
No, I think you did that.
Oh, man. I was... Coco Gauff is so cool, and God love her, and you're right, Shannon, 17 years old, for the love of God, in the quarterfinals at the French Open. Obviously, especially as Americans, and, you know, people love Coco Gauff. We wanted to see her just continue this storybook Cinderella run through the French Open. It was a fun story, but apparently minutes ago at Court Philippe Chartier, which was the court that she played on at Roland Garros in the French Open, she falls 7-6, 6-3, and Coco Gauff is done. I did see Shannon overnight, though, and we asked this question yesterday. Would Coco Gauff be representing the United States of America in the Tokyo Olympics? And apparently the answer is yes. Apparently that was a breaking story yesterday after we got off the air that Coco Gauff is headed to the Olympics representing Team USA. So still, I would say she can't be happy with this loss this morning, Shannon, but I think you would agree, and most of us would agree, the future looks very, very bright for 17-year-old Coco Gauff.
Yeah, she'll be back. There's no question. She'll be back.
Woo! And hopefully back in a big way in the Olympics. It's the Chris Duel Show. She is Shannon Salty Sweeney. Dave Ayler is our soundscape stylist. And Dave, a little bit later in the show, a Cincinnati Red, after a 4-game sweep of your St. Louis Cardinals. A Cincinnati Red has some colorful language and messaging for the St. Louis Cardinal fan base, which would include you.
Is that he had to wait until this past sweep of the Cardinals to actually say something about something that happened over 10 years ago. This has been brewing for over 10 years.
So I see now you're going to have, when the time comes, you're going to have to help us out on that. Sure. I didn't know this was a 10-year feud. This is longer than the Bryson DeChambeau Brooks Koepka feud.
It started 2010.
My goodness. Can you imagine, Shannon, if Koepka and DeChambeau are still going at it 10 years from now? If it's like the most, you know.
Why not if they're still in it, you know?
Yeah,
Now,
If one of them completely falls off, let's end it.
true.
But I'm here for it if it
Yeah.
sticks around.
Hopefully that thing will keep going. I did see, and by the way, we're talking about Joey Votto of the Cincinnati Reds, who had some colorful language and some harsh words for St. Louis Cardinals fans. We will get into that. I saw a thing yesterday, Shannon, and I sent it to you, and I actually sent it to Tanner. I thought it was funny. It was put out by NBA Central on Twitter, and it's got a map of the United States, and it says the 2020 to 2021 most hated NBA player in each state.
Yes.
And I'm gonna have to retweet it. It's just funny. It's just a map of the United States. It's color coded, and the runaway winner in hatred is LeBron James. Most of America hates LeBron James. However, there are pockets of Kevin Durant. There's a one state that hates Paul George. There's apparently one state that hates Russell Westbrook. A few states that hate James Harden, and that would include the great state of Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Texas apparently hates James Harden. I didn't realize, he just played in Texas until the beginning of this season.
I mean, maybe first I want to say I didn't leave you on red. I still am very much digesting this map because I do have a lot of questions, and one of them was Harden, and my only thought was maybe, the last couple of years he was kind of the big name out of the three Texas teams, right? Because the others were without Kawhi, and even when Kawhi was there that last season, he wasn't active. Luka's just now becoming that big star for Dallas, so Harden was probably the face of the NBA in Texas, and I'm very confused about the hate for Durant over in California and Nevada, because was a couple of rings and a MVP not enough for you people?
And again, it might be like the Harden / Kawhi syndrome, in that maybe in California and Nevada, they are Golden State Warrior fans, and maybe they feel he betrayed them. He turned his back on them, which to me, as I look at the state of Texas, and we'll retweet this out here during the break at the bottom of the hour, but Texan has a big Harden over the great state of Texas. I would suggest, and you can probably expect this, Shannon, that if we zoomed in on Texas and zoomed into the San Antonio area, I got a feeling Kawhi Leonard is hated just a little more, if not a lot more, than James Harden in this area.
I would think so. And by that, the idea that Harden's hated because he left, Durant's hated over in the West because he left, LeBron just hated everywhere because whatever, he's LeBron. But then Kyrie in Florida, if we were going by the because he left narrative, why is that not LeBron?
That's a good point.
Why didn't he want to stick it out with his buddy D Wade?
That's a great question. Yeah, I don't fully understand the
Florida, so whatever.
Yeah. I mean, just look at their voting records over the years, and whatever they vote for is usually weird or flawed, or we have to do a recount and hanging chads and God knows what. So, but again, we'll tweet that out in just a little bit, so you can take a look at that. In fact, it did inspire our poll question. I just, maybe I'm going to be reveling in the hatred on this Wednesday, Shannon. I'll try not to be totally inspired by hate, but it did inspire our poll question for today.
Yeah. Well, hate is a strong word.
Yeah.
We are
sports
asking,
hate.
who is the most hated player in sports? Today's options: Tom Brady, the Houston Astros, which I think it's totally okay to kind of clump everyone who was a member of that 2017 World Series team on there. LeBron James, or you go ahead and tell us. I'm not sure yet.
I'm not sure yet either.
Personally.
And it'll be interesting to see who else gets nominated.
Yeah.
And as I wear my Astros t-shirt, and as I wear my Astros baseball cap on this Wednesday, oh, by the way, the Astros won last night. They beat the Boston Red Sox 7-1. However, the Oakland A's, taking on a hapless Arizona Diamondbacks team, Oakland won over the Diamondbacks yesterday 5-2. So Oakland continues to maintain a one-game lead in the AL West. But it's so weird, and maybe I should have gotten used to it as a Cowboys fan, Shannon, but as an Astros fan, and I took such joy in that 2017 World Series victory. It was their first one ever. Mm-hmm. I remember being an Astros fan, gosh, in the late 60s, early 70s, and for decades, the Astros never sniffed the possibility of a championship. So when it happened, I mean, it was just so cool. And then, of course, the cheating scandal, and now most of America hates the Houston Astros. It is weird to be a fan of a team that most of America and pretty much every other Major League Baseball fan base hates.
Yeah.
It's just weird being in that camp.
And I know again, this 2017's been a minute, but they did have that other shot against the Boston Red Sox, and they are, as you just mentioned, winning right now. Because I can only imagine if they were losing at the bottom of the barrel, no one would care. Maybe they'd use it as an excuse of like, see, you really aren't that great. You didn't deserve that. But I don't think they'd be getting as much notice for what they are getting. But in regards to our question for today, feel free to make it as personal as you want when voting, and send us all of the other you tell us options, because I'd love to know why you sports hate someone and why.
Yeah, and again, and you mentioned hate is a strong word, and maybe I should underscore this. We talk about this. There's a difference between actual hate, which is not good, and you should probably avoid it. It's not good for your heart. It's not good for your soul. It's not good for your blood pressure. It's not good for your health, and it's not good just as a human being to hate anybody. But sports hate, I think, is different. Villains are great for sports, just like villains are great for movies. Star Wars would not be nearly as good if Darth Vader wasn't a tremendous villain. So again, the distinction is this is sports hate. We're not advocating actual hate, but I mean, and I must admit, Shannon, and I am not proud of this, part of what I got going in the NBA playoffs now that the Spurs are out of it and your Dallas Mavericks are out of it, I like Luka Doncic. I kind of threw my allegiance. I love Boban Marjanovic. I kind of threw my allegiance to the Mavericks after the Spurs were eliminated, especially when the Mavericks took on Kawhi. But my main rooting interest right now in the NBA playoffs is to see Kawhi Leonard lose. So last night when, and it was a tight one, by the way, Utah beat the Clippers just by 3, 112-109. Rudy Gobert with a block in the closing seconds to save the night at home for the Utah Jazz. But it is sports hatred at the moment that is my number one interest in these NBA playoffs. I want to see Kawhi gone. I don't want to see him win another championship. I want to see him eliminated. And then after that happens, hopefully at the hands of the Utah Jazz now, then I can reassess and go, okay, who am I pulling for now? Why am I watching now?
Yeah. I mean, it's totally fine for you to sports hate and root against. I mean, that's what we look for in sports, right? That's why we love the teams we love, because we love a player or we love an organization and we find that thing to hold on to. And when your team gets knocked out, you have to go elsewhere. And so whether that's a love for another player or a sports hate for another player, that's totally fine and totally fair. It happens all of the time. And I'm there with you. For whatever reason, because obviously I have no connection to Kawhi in the way that Spurs fans do, but for whatever reason, he's just kind of rubbed me the wrong way in the way that he left the Spurs.
Yeah.
And the way that he's acted since leaving the Spurs. So I'm just not in it for the Clippers. I wanted the Clippers to do well when Chris Paul was there because I can like Chris Paul.
Yes.
And I want Chris Paul to do well now with the Suns because, again, I like Chris Paul, but I just can't get on the Clippers train.
And even if you're not a Spurs fan, I mean, you look at what Kawhi did subsequently, and yeah, he did go to Toronto, win a title there, but left Toronto high and dry. I guess that fan base is happy because they got a championship. But then he goes to LA to play for the Clippers, gets Doc Rivers fired, and Doc Rivers won last night. Philly beat Atlanta 118-102. We could still have a Doc Rivers and the Philadelphia 76ers versus Kawhi Leonard and the LA Clippers matchup, which would be fascinating if it happened. It's still a possibility. But so you had the Doc Rivers firing, and then you had all these stories, Shannon, about Kawhi lives in Orange County. And if you know LA, Orange County is south of Los Angeles, and especially with traffic on the 405 or on the Harbor Freeway, whatever you use to get into LA, from south from Orange County. It's a minimum when traffic is good, a 1 hour drive. When traffic is bad, it's a 2 hour, 2.5 hour drive. So we heard multiple stories from last year. Kawhi Leonard showing up late to practice, and he's the only LA Clipper who lives in Orange County. The other LA Clippers live within, like 30 minutes, 35 minutes of the practice facility. Kawhi Leonard lives 90 minutes away in a city that has maybe notoriously the most horrific traffic on the face of the earth. So he does that. He told the coaches, including Doc Rivers, multiple times, I won't be playing today. He's all into his load management. He calls the shots. He's a moody diva. And if he doesn't like you, either he's gone, Spurs, Raptors, or you're gone, Doc Rivers, who by all accounts is a very good man. So even just if you remove the angst that I have as a Spurs fan for Kawhi Leonard, in general, Kawhi Leonard does not seem like a very good dude.
So if I don't think the 76ers are going to make it to the finals with the Nets in their way, but if they did, you would root for a Philly team.
Oh God, yes.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Don't tell.
Well, plus,
the Cowboys.
And again, the Sixers to me have nothing to do with the Eagles. I know it's the same city and
same fans,
maybe the same fan base, but and see, that's what's so weird. It's like on one level, here in San Antonio and in Austin, we're Cowboys fans, and we should be, and yet, other than you and Tanner, most people, especially down closer to San Antonio, are Spurs fans and don't like the Dallas Mavericks, which is weird. But it's just the way it happens across sports. So, but yeah, no, I would definitely pull for the Philadelphia 76ers. All right, we got a lot coming up. The high five play of the day is next. We were hoping to give a high five to Coco Gauff. But she apparently, not apparently, it's official. She loses in 2 sets in the French Open. She was eliminated in the quarterfinal round. Still a great run. And she was unexpected to get to the quarterfinals. So we still, we give her a pseudo high five right now anyway. So high five play of the day, Bill Schoening, who is a Sixers fan, Shannon, because he's from Philly, the voice of the San Antonio Spurs. He's kind of become our NBA playoff analyst. We'll talk with Bill Schoening just after 8 o'clock. Dave Ayler will be answering to the Joey Votto comments. And coming up just after 7 o'clock, a guy we go to for a lot of baseball, Scott Manziera, who used to work on this show and is a big-time baseball guy. We've got some foreign substance allegations in Major League Baseball. We'll get into that and just talk all things baseball with Scott Manziera just after 7 o'clock. Lots more coming up. She is Shannon Salty Sweeney. Dave Ayler, your soundscape stylist. I'm Chris. You're listening to The Chris Duel Show. Hey, Shannon, can you hear me? Yeah, on Scott. I didn't know, and hopefully this doesn't screw up your salty shakedown. At like 4 a.m. or 3:30, I saw the Garrett Cole story. So I invited Scott Manziera to join us. I said, if you see this in time, 7:06 this morning. If you don't, 7:06 tomorrow morning. And then he got back with me like 3 minutes before the show and said, I can do 7:06 this morning. So I don't know what that does to that on the shakedown. Hopefully that doesn't affect that.
I'll judge how we go about it, and then maybe we just relive it again and play the audio, because the audio is fantastic.
Yeah, I would say save the audio for the shakedown, because it is a big story. It's right now the biggest story in baseball.
And are we keeping them the whole segment here?
We'll see how it goes.
I don't
depending
have,
on how it goes.
Have a ton on this, because like you, I wasn't aware of the story until morning.
Well, and then after this, I was going to just go baseball in general and just talk a little Astros, talk a little Yankees, talk a little Dodgers. Wow, Robert Browning going to climb Mount Fuji, taking a 3x5 Spurs flag that you're going to plant at the summit of Mount Fuji. That is amazing, Robert. We got to talk about that. July 22nd. Oh, I want to tweet out this NBA Central thing. Good morning, Beth Settle, Ralph Balderas, Cody Webb, Anthony Del Toro, David Valles, Jorge, Jesse Bratton, Sam Tobias, Fonzie J. Rodriguez, Rudy, Hector Gomez, Julio Reyes, Steve Duraco, Anthony Del Toro. Everybody on Facebook, welcome in. Oh, somebody wrote me Johnny Manziel for most hated. Wasted talent, arrogant Aggie. An arrogant Aggie. Wow. If he was an arrogant Longhorn, would it be as bad? See if I have time to heat up coffee. I think I do. I better hurry. I'm not sure yet. Okay. Let me Shannon, when do you want to do Joey Votto? Dave is asking. Any thoughts on that yet?
If we don't keep Scott the whole time and we talk more baseball after that, that'd probably be best.
Say that again. Yeah, let me I gotta walk it into you. Because I'm on Facebook Live. Hang on a second. I think I can mute myself. Hang on. Yeah, it looks like it. Looks like that's what it is. Welcome back. It is the Chris Duel Show along with Shannon Salty Sweeney on this Wednesday, June 9th. Coming off a couple of NBA playoff games last night. Utah Jazz beat the LA Clippers 112-109. Donovan Mitchell, 45 points for the Utah Jazz. My buddy Kawhi Leonard, 23.7 rebounds in defeat for the Clippers. Rudy Gobert with a big block in the final seconds to secure the win for the Utah Jazz. They take a 1-0 lead in that series. Meanwhile, the early game last night in Philadelphia, the Sixers got back into the series. They beat the Atlanta Hawks 118-102. Joel Embiid, a double-double, 40 points, 13 rebounds for the Sixers. Trae Young, a double-double, 21 points, 11 assists in defeat for the Hawks. One game on the NBA schedule tonight. That would be the Phoenix Suns hosting the Denver Nuggets. That's an 8:30 game on TNT. And Phoenix leads that series 1-0. So coming up just after 7 o'clock, we'll talk some baseball. We'll talk about the controversy involving former Astro, now New York Yankee Garrett Cole, ducking some questions about putting foreign substances on the baseball. We'll get into baseball with Scott Manziera, one of our baseball go-to guys. Also speaking of go-to guys, 8 o'clock this morning, just after 8 o'clock, the voice of the San Antonio Spurs, Bill Schoening, who is now our NBA playoff analyst for the rest. Is that a Bill Schoening laugh? That's pretty good. I I like that. What do we know what he was laughing at that moment? Yeah, we're probably better off not knowing. So anyway, Bill's great. Bill's going to join us just after 8 o'clock. We are with you till 9 o'clock this morning. Thanks for hanging out with us. At this time every morning, we like to give somebody a high five because there's somebody very deserving of a high five. We like to call this the high five play of the day. And if you've been listening, paying attention, high five, not just the name of the segment, but the name of a cool place to go. In fact, 2 locations, 2 very cool places to go in the Austin area. And Shannon, you can attest to that.
Yes, sir. And on Wednesdays, you can hit up either that Lakeway location or the one on Anderson Lane for half-price arcade games where you can hoop it up yourself with the variety of hoops arcade games. They even have one that's Connect 4 hoops that I played and I dominated. After I lost regular Connect 4, I took my mom over there and showed her how it was done. Also, all-night happy hour on Wednesdays, so a great way to get through the rest of the week and have some fun on a Wednesday night. Today's high five is pretty simple. It's going to the man named MVP of this year's NBA season, Mr. Nikola Jokic, who, by the way, was a second-round pick, the 41st overall pick during his draft class. I think now a lot of teams may be regretting not taking this guy. As you just mentioned, the Denver Nuggets will take on Phoenix Suns in Game 2 tonight, but Shaq caught up with Nikolai last night on TNT because from one big man to another, the love was shared.
Joker Shaq here. First thing, thank you. Because of you, the big man is back. You're the first big man to win an MVP in a long time. I thank you and I appreciate you very much. Coming from Serbia as a kid, did you ever say to yourself, I will be an MVP in NBA one day?
No, to be honest, I didn't even think about being NBA. My goal in that when I started to play basketball back home, it was playing a EuroLeague because that was kind of the closest league, the closest top league to my country. I can play in some big clubs in Serbia and kind of grind my way up. But when Denver Nuggets drafted me, it was an opportunity for me to become an NBA player, and I think I did a good job of using that opportunity.
From big man to big man, from MVP to MVP. Nikola, he's number 1 this year. Steph Curry coming in second with the second most first place votes. Did you see him as the MVP going into the season, Chris?
Certainly not going into the season. Obviously, he's a big deal.
Yeah.
He's the best player arguably on the Denver Nuggets, and he's a big force. And certainly Spurs fans got a good look at him 2 years ago in the playoffs where the Spurs were a 7 seed and took the Nuggets to 7 games. Nuggets were a 2 seed. I mean, he's great. I mean, to me, he just doesn't, until Denver goes deeper into the playoffs, he just doesn't feel like an MVP candidate to me. And it's, I know Karl Malone won an MVP for the Utah Jazz back in the day, but it's interesting. In the NBA, the playoffs are so important and almost overshadowing of the regular season. And I know the MVP is a regular season award, and I know Nikola Jokic is very, very deserving, but he doesn't seem yet, and the Denver Nuggets don't seem yet like a team that threatens to go deep into the playoffs. So, I mean, they have a chance to steal one in Phoenix tonight and steal home court advantage and even up that series at 1-1. So, maybe given this accolade, he'll come out with a little more juice tonight.
I mean, I don't know if Shaq is, Shaq got 3 MVPs for the finals, and I don't know if that plays into them, naming the season MVP as early as they do. And I think you're right. He's not shiny, right? And especially in a league where it's all about the jumper and the three.
Yeah.
But, I think people are tired of the LeBrons and the Stephs and always seeing the accolades handed out to them. And I don't, maybe we're circling back. Maybe now we're moving back to, going inside and pounding it down low. And I don't know. It could be interesting.
And
But it is awesome that this guy, again, I said, second round pick number 41.
I totally forgot about that until you said it. And we're so used to him being kind of the face of the Denver Nuggets and being one of the best players in the league and now the MVP of the league.
Yeah.
I totally forgot that he was number 41 overall, a second round pick. Therefore, any team in the NBA, including the Spurs, could have gotten him had they really, really wanted him. That is amazing. And that's, I like that. I mean, I'm happy for the guy. Yeah. How cool. He's not, when you go into a season, coming into the season, if you'd have said, without looking at a roster or looking at teams, who's going to be the MVP? And you think Steph Curry, LeBron James, maybe a James Harden or a Russell Westbrook. I mean, there's a list of guys, Kevin Durant. And when you say those names, you don't think Nikola Jokic. So this is cool. This is a big deal for him.
The highest of fives, should I be able to reach it? Because he is one tall dude.
I think you could jump up and
I don't know.
High five him.
I don't have great tops.
But again, and granted, he's not as young as like a Trae Young, no pun intended. But we've talked about this, Shannon. There's almost kind of a passing of the torch to this new generation. We talked about Zion Williamson with Antonio Daniels on Monday, and we've talked to Zion Williamson before. But Luka Doncic, Trae Young, Zion Williamson, Ja Morant out of Memphis, who had a great opening series, although the Grizzlies lost that one. There's this whole new crop of young players who seem to be the next generation in the NBA who are really making noise. And, we shall see, who wins this NBA championship more. Most people now saying Brooklyn Nets, that's a foregone conclusion. Their big three, obviously, that's kind of the old guard, James Harden, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving. If they win, that's a win for the old guard and certainly a win for super teams. But a lot of these other teams have, Donovan Mitchell for Utah, have these names of these young guys who are really making a name for themselves in the NBA.
Well, and looking at our poll question, of course, we're asking who is the most hated player in sports. LeBron James currently leading the way with 64% of the vote. I think that's part of it, too. People are getting tired of the same few names that we see over and over again. So when the young guns are coming in and then knocking them out, it's someone else to cheer for and some new blood. So I'm all for it.
And by the way, on the poll question, we ask you who's the most hated player in sports, and your choices are LeBron James, Tom Brady, and the Houston Astros. But your fourth choice is other. We ask you to give us another choice for most hated. And Mary Dillard tweeted at us saying, here's what she writes: Johnny Manziel, wasted talent, arrogant, Aggie. So she lists three things that are wrong with Johnny Manziel. Number one, he's a wasted talent. Number two, he's arrogant. And number three, he's an Aggie.
Listen,
come on, Mary.
All of those things are true.
True, but I mean,
however, Johnny is not in your face in the way that, our other options are at the moment, right? Like you kind of every now and again, like a quote of his from the podcast he's on appears, but he's not on your TV screens. You kind of have to actively be looking for him at this point to get annoyed with him in the way that we used to be. But that, again, if you have a personal hatred, that's what I want to know. And I want reasons. So thank you, Mary, for your participation in today's poll question. That's the kind of effort I need from everyone out there listening. So head over to Twitter to get 716 AM 1300 up.
And it's interesting, just personal hatred. Of course, mine right now is Kawhi Leonard. But I remember, and I said his name earlier, Karl Malone of the Utah Jazz. He once, he's at the free throw line. Somebody else is shooting a free throw. And so as he's getting into position to get a free throw, right next to him is David Robinson. So Karl Malone elbows David Robinson in the head, not like an inadvertent whoopsie elbow, like a rear back and bam, full elbow to the head, knocking David Robinson unconscious and obviously to the basketball floor, where he was down for it seemed like several minutes. It was several seconds, and then helped off the court. I hated the mailman Karl Malone for years for doing that. It was just, it was cheap. It was dirty. It was wrong. It could have killed. You elbow a guy in the temple, you could kill him. It could have been life-threatening. So it is interesting who we have sports hatred for and why. But I was trying to think to myself, okay, before Kawhi Leonard, who did I really hate? And it was Karl Malone was on that list at one time.
We're gonna have to get you like a Kawhi jar anytime
man.
you mention your sports hatred for him. So
maybe
there's
if
nickel in the jar.
maybe if Utah can just eliminate them, then I can just be done with this.
And then
I can
after we
move
get
on.
so much money in the jar, we go and buy you a Kawhi jersey.
No. I would burn it. I would have a
That would be the payoff.
Yeah, I've never burned a jersey. I find that like when LeBron left Cleveland and all those fans were burning his jersey, I find that kind of extreme and weird. You know, I think back to like when the Iranians took American hostages in 1979, they were like burning American flags. Granted, there's a big difference between burning an American flag and burning a LeBron James jersey. I get it. I understand that. I'm not equating the two. But I just when you burn that's like God. It's almost like burning Joan of Arc at the stake. All right, when you burn something, that's a whole new level of showing your disgust.
I mean, again, we all know I'm cheap, and I always think of things in terms of money.
It's like, hey,
when they did that was when, of course, he left Cleveland the first time.
Mhm.
He hadn't won championships yet. And to think all those people burned those original Cleveland jerseys that would now go on eBay for a lot of money and probably only, gain value year in and year out throughout his career.
Not to mention the fact that he came back and you would have had your jersey.
You thought you were burning a jersey. I see you burning thousands of dollars.
Wow. And then most of those people, when LeBron came back to Cleveland, probably bought another jersey. So you spent more money. You spent more money on LeBron. You spent double the money on LeBron James. All right. Coming up, a controversy in Major League Baseball involving a former Astro, now a New York Yankee. So I might have some sports hatred for him. I kind of do. He turned his back on the Astros. Garrett Cole. So we'll talk with one of our baseball go-to guys, former Soundscape stylist and contributor to this show, Scott Manziera. We'll talk Garrett Cole. We'll talk about other Major League Baseball storylines. Then we hope to get into it coming up as well. Joey Votto of the Cincinnati Reds with something to say to St. Louis Cardinal fans. We'll get Dave Ayler, a St. Louis Cardinals fan, to answer to that. And he's got some backstory on that as well. Also in the 7 o'clock hour, Shannon's Salty Shakedown, sports history, sports birthdays. 8 o'clock hour, Bill Schoening talking NBA playoffs with us. Thanks for hanging out with us. We're with you till 9 on the Chris Duel Show. Ofa Lin from Singapore. Welcome in. We got Singapore in the house.
Hey, Chris, you could get into this Votto thing with Scott if you wanted to. I'm sure he knows.
True.
He's on the ground there in St. Louis.
Okay. So you've got that audio ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
And, I could jump into it.
All right. Yeah, no, if we did that, because you're both St. Louis Cardinals fans, we'd do it. Will he hear it over the phone if you play it? Probably, right?
It should be, yeah.
Jason Paniagua, Lindenwood Lion, Scott Manziera. So, Robert Browning, if you're still in here, that's a huge thing you're doing to plant a Spurs flag on Mount Fuji. We may need to get you on the show to talk about that. That's so cool. Robert, you should do that with Taro Kotani, who's also a huge Spurs fan. Let's see here. Barney Segura, I do not remember that. Karl Malone Pinata at Taco Cabana. I think that's hilarious. It's a great idea.
Scott's okay with you asking him about the Joey Votto thing too.
Okay. John Nieto, welcome in. Nope, John, the mailman never did deliver a championship. You are correct.
Chris, I've got the quote from Brandon Phillips that pretty much set all this off in 2010. I don't have the audio, but I can read it to you.
Oh, okay.
This is the Chris Duel Show.
You know the day destroys the night, night divides the day. Try to run, try to hide, break on through to the other side. Break gonna do to the other side? We're gonna do to the other side, yeah.
Now, Chris Duel.
It is Wednesday. It is June 9th, 2021. You are midway through the week. You are halfway there to the weekend. It is all downhill from here. It's the Chris Duel Show along with Shannon Salty Sweeney. Coming up a little bit later in this hour, just after 7:30, you'll hear the Salty Shakedown. We'll give you this day in sports history, sports birthdays, and more. Coming up just after 8 o'clock, we'll go deep into the NBA playoffs. Bill Schoening, the voice of the San Antonio Spurs, will talk NBA playoffs and more with us. We are with you until 9 o'clock this morning. The Houston Astros got a big win last night at Fenway Park in Boston. They beat the Boston Red Sox 7-1. Now, unfortunately, the Oakland A's won again. They beat the Arizona Diamondbacks 5-2. That means Oakland maintains a one-game lead over the Astros in the AL West. Now, the Astros are part of our poll question today as we're asking you who is the most hated player, or as I guess in the case of the Astros, hated players in baseball. And of course,
hell, I don't know.
The Astros are much maligned because of the 2017 cheating scandal when the Astros won the World Series. But it's interesting in baseball, the Astros are public enemy number one, yet pitchers who put foreign substances on baseballs and pitchers who have thrown spitballs for generations are not nearly as maligned or called cheaters for doing what they do to doctor a baseball and affect the way that it travels through space. Most notably, a pitcher named Gaylord Perry was famous for throwing spitballs, having Vaseline and substances under the brow of his cap. He would put substances like in between his armpits, and he'd reach in between his armpits on the mound in between pitches before he'd throw the baseball. Gaylord Perry's in the Hall of Fame. Gaylord Perry is celebrated. So it's weird, the relationship that baseball has with foreign substances. And the latest pitcher to come into question, and he was questioned yesterday by reporters, is former Astro, now New York Yankees pitcher Garrett Cole. What is going on with foreign substances in baseball? Is this any different? Is baseball going to do anything about it? We love talking baseball with Scott Manziera, baseball guy and broadcaster from St. Louis, Missouri. So therefore, like Dave Ayler, he's a St. Louis Cardinals fan, formerly the voice of UIW Athletics. He was in San Antonio as the voice of the UIW Cardinals and worked on this show for quite some time. Scott Manziera, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing great, Chris. How are you?
Doing well. All right. Garrett Cole is being called into question for putting foreign substances on baseballs. Is this any different from what Gaylord Perry did in the 1980s? And where do you think this story is going to go?
I do think it's a little bit different because I feel like when you spit on a ball, you're not going to get as much traction as if you put like glue or rosin or something sticky like sunscreen on there, where you can literally get a grip and a better, attachment to your hand of a baseball. When it comes to Garrett Cole, I'm pretty surprised that this actually happened yesterday. A reporter asked him straight up, "Hey, have you ever used this foreign substance before?" And he definitely didn't say no. I think a lot of people that watch the video would actually say that he said yes. So I would be pretty surprised to see if this thing doesn't go any further.
Scott, can we expect any suspensions with MLB possibly investigating this and maybe taking players like Garrett Cole out of the game for a certain amount of time?
I would be surprised if they did take him out, just because I feel like so many people in the league, especially pitchers who we're talking about right now, are doing it. This is kind of a situation where a lot of people, especially Astros fans, would be on this side. hey, everybody is stealing signs in baseball, right? The Astros, unfortunately, got caught, right? So every pitcher, I would say, and at least one, probably more in every organization, is doing this. Garrett Cole just happens to be at the forefront because he is a top 3 pitcher in baseball. And here's a way that it works, guys. This is going to be interesting. I'm not sure if you guys have thought about it like this before. Obviously, pitchers get tested. When they're going into the game, you get looked at. They got any substances in their glove, their arm, their hat, whatever. It actually happened to a Cardinals pitcher a couple weeks ago where they thought he had a foreign substance on his cap, made him switch. What they'll do is somebody on the infield will actually have it in their glove. When you strike somebody out, they'll throw it around the diamond, and whoever has it on the glove, maybe he wipes it the inside of his glove, tosses it back to the pitcher. Now the substance is on the ball. So it's so difficult to catch somebody in the act of it. It's going to be hard to prove it. That's why Garrett Cole didn't admit it yesterday.
Wow. I mean, I had never heard that before, Scott, that, an infielder or an outfielder might catch the ball and he might be the guy putting the substance on the baseball and then tossing it back to the pitcher. Now, while Shannon asked the question, Scott, might Garrett Cole be sanctioned or taken out of games or suspended, and you don't think so, do you think now with this added scrutiny on him personally that in games umpires might be more prone to kind of stop the game and ask to take a look at the baseball that Garrett Cole is throwing?
Absolutely. I think he's definitely going to be watched like a hawk now, and the entire Yankees organization is probably going to get the same treatment. And really, it's a huge loss for baseball. Selfishly as a baseball fan, it's frustrating because these pitchers are already so good, Chris. And you throw in a situation like this where we've had 6 no-hitters already this year. It's already hard enough to hit a baseball that's spinning. You ask these guys that are putting even more and a higher spin rate on the ball, it's impossible to hit these guys. And what do fans want to watch? They want to see a 10-9 game most of the time, right? Not many people really like going to the ballpark to see, a 2-0 or a 3-2 game. And, obviously with it being close, I could see that side if somebody does like that. But, you want to see a higher batting average. We're in the lowest it's ever been at 236 right now, is over all of baseball where the median is of people's batting average. You're not getting many hits during the game. It's obviously evolutionized so much, but, it's frustrating as a fan too, because, we want to see offense.
Scott, do you see that as the put bats to the ball and therefore they're looking for something like this tack that is maybe part of the reason? I wouldn't say it's all of the reason, right? I mean, it's still the responsibility of the batter to lay eyes on the ball and to swing at it. But is that the bigger issue here for MLB at this moment?
Absolutely, because the MLB seemingly always has some kind of issue going on, whether it's during the season, the off season. Here we had the Astros cheating scandal not too long ago. Now you got the foreign substance. You had the steroids. It's like every single year, MLB has got some kind of dark cloud over it, and some kind of issue is going on that plays a major part of the game. And that's terrible for baseball because you get these people that don't really like baseball. They think it's boring, and they act like, oh, there's always something going on with baseball. They always got some kind of investigation going on. It's horrible for the game.
Talking baseball with Scott Manziera out of St. Louis. And Scott, other than this latest storyline with Garrett Cole and the substances perhaps on the baseball, as we look at this baseball season, and obviously we're still very early, it's early June, long way to go. A couple of surprises. I mean, in the National League West, pretty much everybody coming into the season said the Dodgers will be the team to beat. As we speak, they're in 3rd place in the NL West. The San Francisco Giants, surprisingly, on top of that division. Padres 2.5 back, Dodgers 3 games back. What are some of the storylines that you're looking at for this baseball season that you find intriguing?
Oh, my gosh. I think the Giants, you just mentioned it, Chris, might be the most intriguing story in baseball. Who the heck saw that coming? After 60 games in the season, they're leading the NL West. I definitely didn't. I thought they were going to be down there with the Rockies and the Diamondbacks over in that division. So that's a really intriguing story. Something else that I've been following. Before the season, Tony La Russa was obviously under a lot of scrutiny with the White Sox. They're a young team that really likes to have fun. La Russa, old-time manager, not very, I would say, the funnest guy in the room. And then you've had issues with them where, you're with Mercedes at a home run and a 3-0 count and a 15-run game, and he was really ticked off about it. So I've been following that a lot. And then honestly, right now, the Tampa Bay Rays might be the best team in baseball. They have the best record in the MLB since May 1st. I've been really impressed with them. So there's been some good storylines in baseball this year that I really like following. Of course, with the Houston Astros, I think we talked about this preseason. I really liked them to win the West. They had the second best or third best run differential in the American League. So they're on like the side of some bad luck, and the Oakland A's are on some really lucky things right now. They have the lowest run differential in the American League that leads the division. So, those are just some of the ones that I'm really watching closely, Chris.
Well, and as an Astros partisan, I'll also point out, you bring up run differential, Scott, with that 7-1 win last night over the Boston Red Sox. Astros, they've been going back and forth with the LA Dodgers for most overall runs in baseball as we speak. Astros now at 320 total runs. That's the most runs in all of baseball. Dodgers at 318, 2 runs behind the Astros. So, man, if the Astros could really solidify some pitching, there's certainly the bats are swinging for the Astros, and I'm really liking what the Astros are doing as far as scoring runs. All right, Scott, we were going to play this, and then I realized Dave Ayler, who you know very, very well, not only from your days here in San Antonio at iHeartRadio, but sort of, you never knew him, but you grew up in the same neighborhood in the St. Louis area with him. But Joey Votto, and I'm sure you know about this, of the Cincinnati Reds. Reds swept your beloved and Dave Ayler's beloved St. Louis Cardinals very, very recently. So Joey Votto, I believe this was yesterday, had some comments for St. Louis Cardinals fans. The language got colorful, but Dave Ayler, before we hear from Joey Votto and get some reaction from 2 St. Louis Cardinals fans, you're telling us that this spat, this feud, actually goes back several years. Explain that.
This goes back to 2010 when the Cardinals were playing in Cincinnati, and they had Brandon Phillips, who was playing for the Reds at the time, started mouthing off. And I got the exact quote here, and this is from 2010. "I play against these guys with one leg. We have to beat these guys. I hate the Cardinals. All they do is bitch and moan about everything. All of them. They're little bitches, all of them.
Oh,
I really hate the Cardinals. Compared to the Cardinals, I love the Chicago Cubs. Let me be clear. I hate the Cardinals."
Wow.
And so he comes out at his first at-bat in that series, taps Yadier Molina, says, hey, Yadi, how you doing? Yadi gets up in his face and says, "You're not my friend. Just shut up. You're making fun of my club." Both benches clear. Punches are thrown. Johnny Cueto kicked our Jason LaRue in the head, ended his career. And and he's a Texan, lives up in Blanco, Texas. Jason, if you're listening, we got you back, brother.
Oh my God.
And ended Jason LaRue's career with it. And so
I didn't realize that.
Yep. And this has been going on since 2010.
I did not realize there was this level of angst between the Cardinals and the Reds.
Cubs and Cardinals, it's a rivalry, but it's friendly. Reds and Cardinals, we hate the Reds because of this reason. Just for that reason.
Scott Manziera, fellow Cardinals fan, along with Dave Ayler. Before we hear the voice of Joey Votto, your thoughts on this Cardinals-Reds ugliness?
Well, I really like that it's kind of re-sparked the last couple of years. Dave mentioned back in 2010, I would say from like 2014 to 16, the Reds stunk. So it didn't really matter. It wasn't really that big of a rivalry because the Cardinals always looked up on them. But I think these rivalries in sports are fun, man. And I'm excited to hear from Joey here.
All right, Joey Votto, and apparently these comments directed not only at the St. Louis Cardinals, but at St. Louis Cardinals fans talking to the media.
A great team series. It's hard to win 4 games in a row. It's especially hard to win 4 games in a row on the road. And I don't know. I think I read the last time we did that was in 1990. And, we had some talking motherfuckers in St. Louis after the first series sweep. And it's kind of nice to go on their road, at their road ballpark and let them have it. We had some people sweeping brooms and like that while we were leaving. So how'd you like that? How'd you like that?
How'd you like that? And I'm looking at the standings, and the Cardinals lead the Reds by a game and a half, although they're both trailing the Cubs and the division-leading Milwaukee Brewers in the National League Central. So Cardinals 31-30, Reds 28-30. Dave Ayler, when you hear a Joey Votto pop off like that, do you hate him more, or do you find this fun?
Actually, I think it's funny because it only took him 11 years to sweep the Cardinals in series. He's finally getting around to it now. Dude, it's been going on for a long time. The Cardinals swept them a lot, and that's why we got the brooms. That's why we got rings.
And finally, Scott Manziera, I talked to you about the Cardinals a lot as well. And, what strikes me about the Cardinals is seems like year in, year out, they're knocking on the door, and they're always a very, very good team, always one of the best teams in baseball. But 31-30, and now, my goodness, after that sweep, they have lost 6 in a row. Is this one of the most recent, most memorable low points for the St. Louis Cardinals?
Yeah, they're really beat up right now. Their whole pitching staff is really hurting. Their best guy right now is the oldest guy in the roster, and Adam Wainwright. So they're really fighting the injury bug right now. But yeah, they lost 6 in a row, and they faced Shane Bieber last night and got whooped. They're about to start a very easy stretch of games here in about a week or two. They'll have the Pirates, the Diamondbacks, where they're going to get back on track. I really need to play 500 balls to get to the All-Star game. But I'm so glad I got to talk about with Joey Votto's comments. It's so comical. It's kind of comparable to like the Nashville Predators when they do their banner raising ceremonies. They don't even win the Stanley Cup because they take these moral victories with these tiny little things and try to make them big deals. Like Dave said, the Cardinals have the rings to back it up. This whole Joey Votto thing started the opening weekend of the season. Nick Castellanos slid into home and towered over a Cardinals pitcher, and the Reds put it on the outside of their ballpark because they thought it was so cool and such a cool picture. But yeah, I mean, like I said, it's all in fun. But I can't stand the Cincinnati Reds. And there's one last thing I wanted to add to you, Chris. I didn't get a chance to say when we were talking about the Garrett Cole drama, and I really want to make sure I mentioned it. I like coming on your show with some inside information that I talked to a source that actually used to be in the Pirates organization when Garrett Cole was the Pittsburgh Pirate. And, I asked him, I was like, hey, is this sticky substance really related? Can you compare it to PEDs, or do you think this has been going on and things? And the person told me, quote unquote, he's like, you can't compare this to PEDs. These guys are still incredible pitchers. It does help, but you cannot compare it to PEDs. And I wanted to make sure that I put that on your show before I got off the air here today.
All right. We will underscore that point from Scott Manziera. You can follow Scott on Twitter at SManziera2. And if you can't figure out how to spell that, just go look at either Ticket 760 or I tweeted out that he was going to be on the show today. You can find him, follow him on Twitter. Lots of baseball and sports in general insights from Scott. Scott, always outstanding, sir. Thanks for taking the time. We'll talk again soon.
Sounds good, Chris. See you later, Dave. Bye, Shannon. You guys have awesome days. All right, enjoy the heat.
All right, we will enjoy the heat. Speaking of the heat, Shannon, I hear there are. I got a Weather Channel advisory. There are heat advisories. I think there was one yesterday. I think until 7:00 today, they advise the heat indexes are going to get between 100 and 105 up and down the I-35 corridor. So enjoy the heat is actually a cautionary tale, a warning if anybody's out there, especially in the afternoon today.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to fall and spring, but they are no more. I tried to sit out in my backyard yesterday, and it was 97 heat index.
Now, I did see, though, I saw a social media post, and it looked very nice. I saw the new backyard outdoor furniture. How was the wine and cheese and flatbread tasting going?
Oh, it was very nice. We didn't sit outside too long, because it was hot, and even though I fogged the backyard prior to the mosquitoes, I'm so delicious, Chris. They're willing to risk it all just to get a taste of Old Salty here. God, I hate mosquitoes. We need to, and especially after these rains, they're out in force. Like the water that's still hanging around.
Got to be a way. Got to be a way to. I mean, we found a vaccine for COVID. We're eradicating COVID. Can we go to mosquitoes next? because they're spreading diseases too.
I donate to that cause.
Please, let's kill the mosquitoes. And that's why, Shannon, I hear bats. You don't like bats, but bats eat mosquitoes. So bats are your friends. I'm just saying. Not just the Austin ice bats, but bats in general.
I mean, these hands catch a lot of mosquitoes. Okay.
Ooh, and it's great when you like clap and you get a mosquito, and then there's like blood because it's been sucking somebody's blood.
I knew that was you. It's my blood.
Disgusting. They're disgusting creatures. All right, coming up, Shannon and Salty. The Salty Shakedown is moments away. Fasten your seatbelts. If you're driving, both hands upon the wheel. Take a deep breath. Salty Shakedown, sports history, sports birthdays, and more. Just after 8 o'clock, we'll talk NBA playoffs with the voice of the San Antonio Spurs, Bill Schoening. Lots of sports coming at you between now and 9 o'clock. Thanks for hanging out with us on the Chris Duel Show. All right. Coffee. Necesito café. Por favor. Carl Fisher, good morning. Tell your Astros to stop beating up on my Red Sox. They have kind of had their, and the Red Sox had won 5 in a row before last night. So, yeah, the Astros have kind of had their way with the Red Sox. Okay. That's so loud. It's just loud. Let's do that. Let's do this. 31 seconds. 30.7. Two of these. Jonathan Rivera, welcome in. So I'll see what you wrote in a second, Jonathan. I think you want to shout out, which we do. That's what we're all about. I'm editing some audio real quick. Let's see. Let's do another one here. That'll work. Shoot.
Place any piece of glass on your vehicle.
Let's see what I'm looking for.
How is your car looking? Get it into R&R Auto Glass. Make it look beautiful again. They can replace any piece of glass on your vehicle. Plus, window regulators, camera calibration. They do it all with a lifetime warranty. Also, military, UTSA, and senior discounts. Speaking of discounts, ask them about the Duel deal. Save even more money off the already low and reasonable price.
14.
All the info is at the website, rnrautoglass.com. Check it out, rnrautoglass.com.
June 14th, RNR. Okay. File. All right, Jonathan Rivera, please shout out the Smithson Valley baseball team and wish them luck at state this weekend in Round Rock. Jonathan Rivera, we will absolutely do that. I'll do that next. We're back in like maybe less than 2 minutes. So I'll open up with the shout out, Jonathan. But Robert Browning, I love that story. And I'm assuming that you're going to get photos, obviously, of you planting the Spurs flag. Anyway, I do want to talk to you about that. Here we come. Thank you for hanging out with us this morning. We do appreciate it. It's the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney. She's about to get saltier because the Salty Shakedown is moments away. Just after 8 o'clock, we'll dive deeper into the NBA playoffs with the voice of the San Antonio Spurs and card-carrying Philadelphia 76ers fan because he grew up in Philly. I mean, obviously, number one in his heart are the Spurs because, you know, he's been with them for 20 years now as voice of the Spurs. I'm talking about Bill Schoening, but he's a Philly guy, so he must be happy that the Sixers beat Atlanta last night, 118-102. Among other things, I want to ask Bill, you know, I'm hearing more and more that Brooklyn, nobody's going to beat Brooklyn, that they're a super team. And so how concerned is he that nobody can beat the Brooklyn Nets? We'll get into that and more. Before we dive into Shannon's Salty Shakedown, this day in sports history and sports birthdays, we are all about the shout outs on this show, especially It doesn't have to be, but especially if it's sports related, on Facebook Live moments ago. And if you're new to the show, we stream live video on AM 1300 The Zone and Ticket 760's Facebook pages. So there you not only can interact in real time with Shannon, with Dave Ayler, with me, with whoever might be our guest, but there's lots of people from not only across the great state of Texas, but all over the world. I saw Ofa Lin joining us this morning from Singapore. So Singapore is in the house. Robert Browning is in the house from Japan this morning. In fact, Robert just told us on Facebook Live he's going to climb Mount Fuji on July 22nd with a Spurs flag, and he's going to plant the Spurs flag at the summit of Mount Fuji, which I think is incredibly cool. But I do want to give this shout out. Jonathan Rivera wrote, "Good morning. Please shout out to the Smithson Valley baseball team, the Smithson Valley High School baseball team, and wish them good luck at state this weekend in Round Rock." So that's pretty cool. So I guess I didn't know that, Shannon, that I'm guessing Round Rock, do they play at Dell Diamond? Do they have like high school baseball tournament baseball at Dell Diamond? That's way cool.
Yep. Dell Diamond announced they're hosting the UIL playoffs. So it's a great atmosphere and an awesome opportunity for those kids that make it there to get to play in at that ballpark, because it is one of a kind.
See, I love it. Yeah. When because I know that sometimes, like in San Antonio, they have the high school playoff games at the Alamo Dome in San Antonio, which is cool. And I've seen the state championship, at Jerry World and many, many years ago at Texas Stadium. And I just thought, how cool to be a high school player. And in the case of Smithson Valley and others, to play at Dell Diamond in just a tremendous stadium or a great football stadium, or it's just, and I remember, and this, I'm going to date myself as to how freaking old I am. I remember in 1971, the year the Cowboys went to their first Super Bowl, and they opened Texas Stadium for the first time in 1971. That December, they had the Texas State High School Championship football game there, and the winner was San Antonio Robert E. Lee High School, and the quarterback of Robert E. Lee was Tommy Kramer. Tommy Kramer went on to have a great career at Rice University, and then many years as the starting quarterback with the Minnesota Vikings. And as Dave Ayler knows, a guy he works with in this building, Charlie Parker, who you're going to have to meet eventually, Shannon. Charlie's like a legend on radio in San Antonio, but Charlie is married to Eva Kramer, and Eva is the little sister of Tommy Kramer, who won the state championship for Robert E. Lee High School in 1971 at Texas Stadium, home of the Cowboys. I'm just saying.
You connected a lot of dots there.
But I mean, if I were, and I didn't play high school football, I was a 145-pound scrawny little cross-country runner with no athletic skill whatsoever other than run, Forrest, run. That's the only thing I could do. But, I mean, as a Cowboys fan, to be playing football on the Cowboys turf at either Texas Stadium or now Jerry World, my God, how cool is that? That's the coolest thing in the world. All right, enough of that. Congratulations, Smithson Valley. Best of luck at Dell Diamond, at Round Rock in the state UIL high school baseball tournament. We'll keep an eye on that as it develops. In a moment, Shannon's Salty Shakedown. Before that, sports birthdays. But we start on this June 9th with this day in sports history. This day in 1914, over 100 years ago. Are you kidding me? Pittsburgh Pirate baseball shortstop Honus Wagner is the second baseball player ever to get 3,000 hits. And the Honus Wagner baseball card, if you've got it, apparently worth a lot of money. This day in 1945, following an 8-7 win over the Philadelphia Phillies, Brooklyn Dodgers manager Leo DeRocher is arrested on a complaint by a fan that DeRocher slugged him in the face. So clearly the fan was saying something stupid to Dodger manager Leo DeRocher. See, that's back, Shannon, that's back when, like, fans now yell, heckle NBA players. Back, Leo DeRocher would punch you in the face. I'm just saying.
That's allowed anymore.
Yeah, it's probably not allowed. Now that fan would sue Leo DeRocher and get millions of dollars. Exactly. Good point. On this day in 1978, Larry Holmes beat Ken Norton in 15 rounds. It went the distance for the heavyweight boxing title. Larry Holmes out of Houston, Texas. Ken Norton, the father of Ken Norton Jr., who won a Super Bowl or two with the Cowboys. And finally, on this day in 1985, the NBA championship was decided at the Boston Garden as the Los Angeles Lakers beat the Boston Celtics 111-100 for a 4-2 series victory over the Boston Celtics. Your MVP, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He was pretty good. That's this day in sports history. How about sports birthdays? I got 3 of them for you. Born on this day in 1939, Dick Vitale, American basketball sportscaster. Before that, he was a coach, but it's not March Madness without Dick Vitale. Born in Passaic, New Jersey on this day in 1939. Born on this day in 1951, the Cobra, Dave Parker, American Baseball Hall of Famer with the Pittsburgh Pirates. He was the National League MVP in 1978. Dave Parker, We Are Family from Sly and the Family Stone. That was the theme song of those Pittsburgh Pirates. Dave Parker, born on this day in 1951 in Grenada, Mississippi. Finally, a guy I would like to have a beer with. Born on this day in 1973, New England Patriots linebacker Teddy Bruschi. I'd like to have a brewski with Teddy Bruschi. Teddy Bruschi, born on this day in 1973. And I did not know this, born in San Francisco, California. I always associate Teddy Bruschi with New England and Boston and the Patriots, but he was a Bay Area baby born in San Francisco on this day in 1973. That is sports birthdays and sports history. Now, ladies and gentlemen, fasten your seatbelts, both hands on the wheel, take a deep breath. If it gets a little intense, chant your mantra. You'll feel better. Here it is, your salty shakedown.
Garrett Cole clearly making headlines today as kind of the face of this new substance going around in the MLB dubbed Spider Tack. For those that aren't sure exactly what it is, it's mostly promoted for strongmen who take part in Atlas stone competitions that are the really round sphere stones that they carry for distance and do things with because, it helps their grip.
Yeah.
And they're strongmen. And just because they're strong, they still need a sturdy grip on those round stones. Spider Tack, the latest thing, bringing a dull light gray cloud over the MLB. And as we know, Garrett Cole, the face of the current Spider Tack issue, well, as we mentioned earlier, he was asked whether or not he used it, and we have his answer here for you, and it really is something.
Have you ever used Spider Tack while pitching?
I don't know. I don't know if I don't quite know how to answer that, to be honest. There are customs and practices that have been passed down from older players to younger players, from the last generation of players to this generation of players, and I think there are some things that are certainly out of bounds in that regard, and I've stood pretty firm in terms of that, in terms of the communication between our peers and whatnot. Again, like I mentioned earlier, there's, this is important to a lot of people that love the game. This is including the players in this room, including fans, including teams. And so, if MLB wants to legislate some more stuff, that's a conversation that we can have, because ultimately we should all be pulling in the same direction on this.
Cheater!
Chris, it sounded like he was asked a yes or no question,
Uh-huh.
and that mess went on for a minute. in which he didn't say yes or no and just kind of stuttered his way through it. It was almost like when Kyrie, kind of answers one of his questions and he starts pulling from places that you don't really understand where from. If you don't want to, I don't know if he's ever been in legal trouble, but I would advise that he always ask for a lawyer to be present because dude is, whether he's lying or not, it sure comes out that way. What about you? Have you heard that yet? Have you heard that stuttering, fumbling of an answer?
That's the first time I heard it. I read his quote, but when you hear it, my God, I don't know how to answer that. Well, yes or no? Mm-hmm. That's how you answer the question. Yes, no, and again, and it's so weird, Shannon. And I guess I'm defensive because of the Astros. But, he goes, well, there's been traditions handed down from the previous generation of players, which, of course, is spitballs and putting substances on a baseball, to which I would say, well, there was a tradition that began in the 1800s called sign stealing. And in the 1800s, they didn't have technology like cameras. And so the Astros, like every single other team in baseball, stole signs. They used tech and some trash cans to steal signs. But for anybody to think it's only the Astros who stole signs in 2017, you're very naive. Every team does it. And to think the Astros are the only ones who used high tech to do it is also naive. But my God, Shannon, that answer from Garrett Cole, that I'm going to be watching Saturday Night Live, who they come from New York. I'm sure this was a big story in New York because Garrett Cole is a New York Yankee. That just sounds like a Saturday Night Live sketch waiting to happen.
And also you mentioned the Astros. It's not great that it's Garrett Cole at the center of this because, as we all know, he was very much a part of that 2017 World Series. Again,
former
Garrett
Astro.
Cole, I obviously media, being present at a media event as a player has been a large discussion lately in all of sports. But I would advise you have someone present there with you at this point because you're not doing yourself
Thomas J. Henry or somebody.
Favors. All right, let's switch it up. Let's go to college football because as we know, we're getting closer and closer to kickoff. I know it seems so far away, but it'll be here before you know it. Well, a lot of people have been saying the college football playoff should be expanded ever since its birth of only 4 teams. And now the conversation has really sped up. It seems like we will get that expansion in the next couple of years. And although most are saying it'll be 8 teams, there is a push now for 12 teams. And sir, with 12 teams, the group of 5 would get an automatic bid, their top team, as well as anyone from the 5 major conferences who wins those, they get an automatic bid, and then there'd be 6 at-large teams. I like the idea of expanding it. One of the points made is it keeps people in it in November, right? Because so many teams by November are knocked out, the fans are taken out, then they don't even care about the playoffs. So I'm for it. 8 or 12, I do think it needs to be expanded. Others are arguing you're still going to get Clemson and Alabama there at the end, but it does kind of allow for a March Madness like Cinderella story upset when you do have a group of 5 in there, and then those 6 at-large teams based on their win record and where they fall in the standings. So I am all here for it. I don't know how that would change. I know ESPN right now likes to go, their whole promotion of it is who's in, right? And I don't know how that would change when you then have 12 teams. But I'm here for it, especially as a Longhorn fan. I think it only helps us out, right? Because if it's not OU, it's Texas. If it's not Texas, it's OU. And obviously you want as many representatives as you can from your conference to get into that playoff. We've not talked about it since I've been a part of this show, but your thoughts on playoff expansion, and are you thinking more 8 or 12 teams at this point?
I have always felt 8, but I'm okay with 12. And my bottom line has always been this, Shannon. All 5 power conferences, if you win the Big 12, you should be automatically in. And I'm a Pac-12 guy, and the Pac-12 has gotten screwed a lot in this deal. So Power 5 in. My other thing is, if you go undefeated, no matter who you are, if you're in Division I, so that means like a UTSA or a UCF. Yeah, if you go Cincinnati, if you go undefeated, and there's never more than like 2 or 3. So if you have 8, if you had the Power 5 and the at-large teams, if you're undefeated, you're in. Now, what this also does, though, if you go 12, and I'm liking 12 a little more now that you describe it, because so my bottom line, Power 5 teams automatic bid if you win your conference championship. Undefeated in Division 1 automatically in. It's only fair. And then there's probably, you talk about Texas and OU, there could be a great Texas team and a great OU team. Somebody lost that game in Dallas. Then, yeah, a really, really good at-large team that maybe has 1 or 2 losses should get in. So I could easily, I was thinking 8, but I can easily agree with 12.
Yes. The key to 8 here is that Cincinnati and UCF undefeated teams, right? Because UCF, because they were ranked number 8 in those seasons where they went undefeated, and they obviously did not get into the playoffs. So something to keep an eye on, like I said, when they do expand it, because at this point it seems like it will happen. It's just whether or not it'll be 8 or 12. It will be a couple years down the road. So still going into this season, we're only going to have 4 teams in that playoff. All right, finally today we've got some LeBron news. He can't keep quiet, even though he's not in the playoffs anymore. And ironic, with LeBron's attitude, he walked off the court. He's, not getting back on defense. He's arguing with the refs. He kind of felt like it kind of came off as he was just over it, right? And so my joke was, well, Space Jam is premiering in the middle of what will be the NBA Finals. See, that's all he cares about now. He cares about superstar LeBron, not basketball LeBron. But his merch just dropped. Not for sale yet, coming in July. But you can see the Space Jam Nike merch, including new LeBron 19s with out of this world colors, is going to be available this summer. Those shoes, by the way, are going to cost you 200 big ones. But I found it interesting because, we talk about Lakers fans and we talked about the media and the broadcast partners of the NBA being upset that LA is now out because that could hurt their ratings. But the producers of Space Jam have this merch. They have the LeBron on-court shoes that he could have been wearing during the finals. That movie comes out July 16th. July 22nd is slated to be the last day of the finals if it goes to Game 7. So through that week of promotion and the conference finals at the end of June, that would have been the ultimate promotion for this movie, to him be wearing those shoes and then walking into the tunnel on NBA TNT, going into those games with all the new merch. Sorry about it, man. You're just gonna have to stick to social media.
I'm sure that was the master plan. He was expecting it. They were expecting it. Wow. Sorry.
It's all right, LeBron.
Sorry,
You're
LeBron.
still very rich and very famous, but you are winning our poll today. The most hated athlete in sports at the moment, 72% goes to Mr. LeBron James. There you have it. Today's Salty Shakedown.
As usual, a spectacular Salty Shakedown this morning. And I keep hearing about this college playoff. It can't get here soon enough. We'll talk more about that coming up. Bill Schoening, the voice of the San Antonio Spurs, Bill Schoening, will go deep into the NBA playoffs with Bill next. She's Shannon, Dave Ayler making the show go. I'm Chris. Till 9 on the Chris Duel Show. Jason Paniagua says Saturday Night Live already had a season finale. Shannon, I don't know if you've seen what Pat wrote, but his daughter works at the Capitol. Very cool. Okay, I have to finish editing these spots. So where's this second one at? It's there and there. It's 31 seconds. That's too long. Let's do that.
Nobody does it better than R&R Auto Glass. Customer service through the roof, the best workmanship, and they're going to save you money. They've got the best rates plus a lifetime warranty on all they do. They replace any piece of glass on your vehicle, window regulators, camera calibration. They do it all. Military, UTSA, and senior discounts. Ask them about the Duel deal. Save even more money off the already low and reasonable pricing. Everything you need to know is at the website. Go look. rnrautoglass.com. RNR Autoglass.
Okay, that's the 16th, right? Yeah. Oh.
Nobody does it better than R&R Auto Glass. The workmanship, the service, customer service through the roof, lifetime guarantee, and the best work. They replace every piece of glass on your vehicle. Also, camera calibration, window regulators, all with a lifetime warranty. Pluto San Antonio, military, UTSA, and senior discounts. Ask them about the Duel deal. Save even more money off the already low and reasonable pricing. Everything you need to know is at the website, rnrautoglass.com. RNR Autoglass.
Whoops. Now, need to email that. John Williams, I'll check that in a bit. Super. Thank you, sir. Funny. All right. Does this make any sense? Okay. I kind of saw that on. I didn't specifically discuss that with him, but I kind of gathered that from looking at his Facebook. Did he say what he's doing now? Huh. If he can be good at that, he's probably better off. Yeah, I think there were cutbacks or something. I tried to. Oh, that's never good. That's too bad. Robert Browning, thank you, sir. Yeah, Robert, if you're still here, we want to have you on the show to talk about what you're going to do climbing Mount Fuji with a Spurs flag. So anyway, let's get in touch about that. Thanks for joining us this morning or at night, your time in Japan. Much appreciated. Here we go. Wes, if Kawhi is getting ripped in the national media, I don't shed many tears, as you know. It is Wednesday, June 9th. The NBA playoffs are in full force. These second round games had a couple of big games last night. We've got one NBA game on tap tonight that will be in Phoenix as the Suns, with a 1-0 lead over the Denver Nuggets, will try to make it 2-0. Of course, the Nuggets will try to steal home court advantage. Shannon and I were talking about the big Nuggets news yesterday. Nikola Jokic, now the MVP of the NBA. Will that give him a little extra juice tonight? That game's at 8:30 on TNT. It's the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney. We love talking hoops with Bill Schoening, who just completed his 20th season as the voice of the San Antonio Spurs. And of course, before that, many years as the voice of the Texas Longhorns. He still makes his home in the Austin area. Bill Schoening, how you doing this morning?
Very good. Very good. A little tired because I stayed up last night to see the end of the Utah game, the Clippers in Utah. I don't have to tell you what I was pulling for, but I went to bed happy. Let's put it that way.
As did I. Yeah, these late night games, Bill, it seems like always, some nights there would be like 4 NBA games. And when Dallas was playing the Clippers, the one game I really wanted to see was the late game. And with, Shannon and I with this early wake up time, it's a little rough. Let's start there. Utah wins in a tight one over the Clippers, 112-109. Rudy Gobert with a block shot in the closing seconds to secure that win for the Utah Jazz. And Donovan Mitchell, 45 points for the Jazz. And you've said this, Bill, so much attention in these playoffs has been on other teams. And even though the Jazz had the best record in the NBA in the regular season, I feel like in the national media, they're kind of flying underneath the radar. But you've been very high on the Jazz from the get-go. Did they do anything to make you more of a believer or less of a believer last night?
Well, I think that they really picked up their defense in the second half. I think that they were a lot more aggressive. They were getting into guys a little bit more, I think, in the first half. And some of it's to be expected. They had a long layoff after their previous series where, the Clippers had to go 7 games, of course, with Dallas. Sometimes that's an advantage for the team that just got off a series because they're still in a rhythm. They're still in a groove. But I think that they got their legs in the second half last night and played much better, and especially on the defensive end of the floor. But you're right about Donovan Mitchell. And, we have been talking about that. Why not get a lot of attention to Devin Booker for Phoenix and Donovan Mitchell for the Jazz when all you hear about is Kawhi and LeBron?
Bill, is there any shot that any of these teams from the West can beat the Nets? Because we are seeing the Nets dominate the Milwaukee Bucks, which were supposed to be, the matchup of the East, and people even wishing that Milwaukee was coming out of the West so we could have seen them in the finals together.
Of course, I'm a little disappointed with the way Milwaukee has played so far, but that series is not over. I think that the key game, obviously, is Game 3, and then for Milwaukee now, they've got to really, pick it up. But we saw the Clippers do it to the Mavericks in the previous series, where they got down 2-0 and came back and won. They can do it. But Milwaukee looks like they're a little disjointed right now. I'm not sure exactly what's going on with them. And give credit to Brooklyn because they've been playing great offensive basketball. And of course, Harden's been out, so it's pretty amazing the depth and the talent that Sean Marks, the general manager of the Brooklyn Nets, has been able to put together. Of course, they've spent a lot of money getting that kind of talent together. But I do think that they're beatable. Right now, they're obviously playing very well, and we'll see how they do in the rest of the series with Milwaukee. If Embiid can stay healthy, I think that Philly's got a chance. That's what we talked about before. And I picked Philly and Utah in the finals. That's just a guess, educated guess, but it's still a guess. But we'll see what happens. And, this age of super teams, me personally, I'd rather see a team that was put together with the draft and with some select free agents rather than just kind of throwing all the superstars together. I'd rather see a team like that advance, like the Utah Jazz.
Totally agree with you as we talk NBA playoffs with the voice of the San Antonio Spurs, Bill Schoening. And Bill, going back to that Milwaukee series against the Brooklyn Nets, Milwaukee, as Shannon mentions, down 2-0. They've been totally dominated in both of those games. And as I look at the national media, a man you know well, because he was the longest tenured Greg Popovich assistant, the head coach of the Milwaukee Bucks, Mike Budenholzer. Word is, if we believe NBA analysts, that Mike Budenholzer might be on the hot seat. They for the last several seasons with Giannis, the Bucks win a whole bunch of regular season games, but have been kind of disappointing in the playoffs. If that's true, and we don't know if it's true, but if it's true that Mike Budenholzer is on the hot seat in Milwaukee, from your perspective, Bill, and you've covered the NBA, front row center as voice of the Spurs for 20 years now, is that fair? Because you've got 16 teams every year, and only one of them can win the whole darn thing. And in this case, Milwaukee is going up against a super team in the Brooklyn Nets. For a guy like Mike Budenholzer, who has had so much regular season success in Milwaukee, is it unfair for him to be on the hot seat?
It is in a way, but then in another way, there are a lot of expectations in Milwaukee. They feel like they've got a superstar in Giannis Antetokounmpo. They got some very good supporting pieces there. They were swinging for the fences this year, no question about it. So I think the mindset, at least for some in Milwaukee, is that it's a championship or bust, or at least get to the finals. So I think that the people that are saying that Bud could be out if they don't win here, or at least get to the finals, are looking at the fact that this team is all in. The expectations for this team is a championship. It's not to make the playoffs. And now they want to take that next step, and they have not been able to do that.
Bill, you are from Philly, as I understand it, and so you've got to have some ties to the 76ers and got to be cheering for them over in the East. They do get a win back over on the Hawks to tie that series up 1-1, but I want to get your thoughts on the ending to that game one. It seemed at the time that Atlanta had it in the bag, even down the stretch when it got really crazy. I mean, there was an alley-oop moment where even the announcer said, and just to put a final exclamation point on it, but it was absolutely crazy. What does that say about the fight of the 76ers? And after last night's game, do you think they have they're settled down? They're going to be okay during the series with the Hawks?
It's a 1-1 series. Atlanta is a very good team. And I said this at the very beginning of the year. In fact, they were disappointing early in the season. They made the coaching change, brought Nate McMillan in, and they started to play really well after that. I think this is a very talented Atlanta team. I think Philly's the better team if they can stay healthy. I was a little bit perplexed last night when Embiid was on the floor when it was a 20-point game with about 5 minutes left. Like, Okay, you don't want him to tweak that knee because he's their most valuable player, one of the most valuable players in the league. And obviously, you need him to be healthy for this entire series. But he is playing at an MVP level, even though Jokic got the MVP and deservedly so. I think Embiid is right up there. But it's the supporting cast. It's the guys like George Hill and Danny Green and Tobias Harris and Matisse Thybulle, who's a defensive specialist that comes in and does a good job. All of those players have to be on as well. And it's not just one superstar that's going to lead you to the promised land. You got to have other role players play well. I think that's what hurt Dallas, quite frankly, in their series with the Clippers. Doncic was able to, carry the load as much as he could. But I don't think Porzingis had a great series. He just needed some help and didn't get it. And that's one of the things Dallas is going to have to look at in the offseason is getting some help for Luka Doncic.
Bill, you mentioned Danny Green and George Hill with the Philadelphia 76ers. And as a Spurs fan, one of the things I do during the playoffs, whenever the Spurs are eliminated or if they're not in the playoffs like this season, is I look at each team and I go, all right, how many Spurs are represented? And certainly Doc Rivers actually as a player was a one-time Spur. But I'm thinking about Danny Green, and you know Danny well, and I'm looking at the arc of his career and, winning a championship in San Antonio, going to Toronto as part of that Kawhi Leonard trade, winning a title there. Kawhi goes to the Clippers. He goes to the Lakers. Danny Green wins a title there. Now you are picking the Sixers to face Utah in the NBA Finals. If Philly wins this thing, Danny Green, all of a sudden, we got to start looking at him as the new Robert Horry. I think Robert Horry got 5 rings with multiple teams. I mean, Danny Green, if you're an NBA team, he may be a good luck charm. Danny Green is he's like Forrest Gump. He's always in the right place at the right time.
Forget he won an NBA or an NCAA championship with North Carolina.
Yes.
Right? So, he's got an NCAA title as well. I don't know if those guys get rings or not, but it reminds me of the Robert Horry story because he has so many rings. Someone asked him, I believe it was after the Spurs championship in 2007, Robert, where do you keep all your rings? And he said, I don't know where all my rings are. In fact, the other day I was in the kitchen. I was looking for a knife. I opened up a drawer. There were 2 rings there. So, I don't know if Danny's got the same problem that Robert had, but he's icy hot. In fact, he was a little cold last night, and those fans in Philly, they'll get on you if they don't think you're performing very well. So I think there were some boo birds coming out last night on Danny Green. But Danny's such a likable guy and one of my favorites. And obviously, you've heard interviews with him through the years. He was a go-to guy for me all those years he was with the Spurs. He'll be a member of the media. The day he retires, one of the big networks is going to gobble him up because he's so loquacious and funny, and he'll be very, very good on the air. But he still has some basketball left in him, and he's an important part of what they do. I think it's obviously Embiid and a lot of help. But I mentioned Tobias Harris earlier. He's very important to that ball club. But it's also good to see George Hill because Indy G is one of my guys, and obviously he came up with the Spurs, and he was Pop's favorite guy before he made that trade. They got the Spurs Kawhi Leonard back in 2011. So I'm pulling obviously for them.
Hey, Frank.
So I pull for them all the time, except for when they play the Spurs. But they don't play the Spurs the rest of the season, so I'll be pulling for Philly the rest of the way.
Bill, Damian Lillard posted on social media to say thank you to the Trailblazers coach who was let go after their exit. He also posted a thank you to that coaching staff and some hinting that he may be done and wanting to go elsewhere. Any chance that the Spurs may take a look to try and trade for him?
Well, I don't know, to be honest with you about that, because obviously Damian Lillard's one of the top players in the league and then draws a huge salary. So, and he's also been around the league now for, I think he's in his 10th year, maybe. He's close to 30 if he's not 30 already. So I don't know that fits with what the Spurs are trying to do as far as, grow this team with a lot of youth. But if they had an opportunity to look at a guy like that, certainly I think they'd take a look at it because he's such a good player and a good guy from all accounts. A good locker room guy and a guy that really maybe deserves a break because it's been tough. It kind of reminds me a little bit, Shannon, of Kevin Garnett in his years with Minnesota. He tried real hard to get the Minnesota Timberwolves over the hump, could never do it, and then he ended up going to Boston and winning a championship. And I don't know what's in the future for Damian Lillard, but there are probably 29 other teams who would like to take a look at him for sure.
He's the voice of the San Antonio Spurs, Bill Schoening. And Bill, as you said earlier, and I absolutely agree, in the era of the super team, and the current super team is the Brooklyn Nets, it would be nicer to see a homegrown and a home-built team win the NBA championship. An intriguing two of those teams in action tonight, but one of them, the Denver Nuggets, a very intriguing. And now, as I mentioned earlier, Bill, they've got the MVP. We found out yesterday Nikola Jokic won the MVP, of course, with the Denver Nuggets. And Shannon pointed out to me, and I forgot about this because we've heard his name so much and view him kind of as the face of the Denver Nuggets. He was a second-round draft pick, number 41 overall, and just another indicator. And I think for Spurs fans, Spurs fans are so used to going to the playoffs and winning between 50 and 60 games and maybe going to the finals. I think this is an era for Spurs fans when they're just not used to being where the Spurs have been the last two seasons. But Nikola Jokic, certainly an indicator of what can be done if you've got a good scouting and player development system and you're bringing in the right guy for the right team at the right time. Talk a little bit about your thoughts on Nikola Jokic.
So many great skills, and I didn't realize he was that good a passer when he first came in. And obviously, he was heady when he first came in. He wasn't maybe in the best shape, so maybe that's why he flipped to the second round. Of course, he was also over in Serbia. Not that NBA scouts don't go overseas and watch players; they do. But this is a guy that kind of slipped through the cracks a little bit for a number of reasons. But I remember interviewing Scott Hastings. I think it was Jokic's second year. Scott Hastings is a former NBA player who played for a number of teams and also was a standout college player at the University of Arkansas and is now the analyst for the Denver Nuggets. And I was doing a pregame interview with him, and he said that in this interview, early in Jokic's career, that Jokic is the best passing big man he's ever seen. I thought, well, that's kind of ludicrous, really. The best passing big man you've ever seen? And it's pretty much true. I mean, he's an amazing passer and leads that team in rebounds, points, and assists. So they obviously leaned on him all year long. That's why he got the MVP. As far as Denver advancing, it's going to be tough, though, because without Jamal Murray, this is a guy that averages better than 20 points a game. And they've got to have another guy step up. Monty Morris did not play very well in their opener against Phoenix. They need Monty Morris and some other guys to step up and do a good job against Phoenix because they're down Jamal Murray. And that's one of the things they did in the previous series. They got positive contributions from Campazzo,
Jason, I'll ask him.
Morris, and Michael Porter and some of the role players. So I still think that's going to be a very good series, that Phoenix-Denver series. Obviously, Phoenix has the upper hand now 1-0.
Yeah, we get to watch that one tonight, 8:30 on TNT. Phoenix up 1-0, hosting the Denver Nuggets. It's the only NBA playoff game tonight. Bill, I'm seeing, we were talking about Danny Green and his rings and Robert Horry and all of his rings. Getting a message on Facebook Live from Jason Paniagua, who asks, doesn't Bill Schoening have 4 rings? So, and Bill, as voice of the San Antonio Spurs, you are awarded rings when the Spurs win championships. So I will now pose that question to you. Where do you keep your rings?
I gave the first 3 rings to family members.
Cool.
So my son Eric has one, my son Carl has one, my wife has one, and I kept the real nice with a 14 ring, which is the one I really treasure.
Yeah.
All the championships are special, don't get me wrong, but the 14 ring is the one that I'll treasure forever and ever, amen, because that came after the 13 disappointment. So I think a lot of the guys that were around for the 14 championship, even if they were there for the previous 3 or previous 4 for that matter with Tim and Pop, that one is the most special because not only is the most recent, but it came after the very severe disappointment in the finals in 13. So I've got them secured. Every once in a while I'll slip it on and just kind of show it off, but I try to keep it close to the vest. It's a very, very important, obviously it's not a collectible. It's something that, and I didn't earn it, the team did. So the franchise to, give the radio guy and the TV guy or a ring. So yeah, I've got one, and it's a very special keepsake. Yeah.
So cool. One of the things I love about that 14 ring, Bill, and I've seen photos, the interior of the ring, the inside of the ring has the inscription "Good to Great," which of course is one of the mantras of Coach Greg Popovich and that 2014 team.
Right, pounding the rock is on the outside of the ring as well. Of course, that's one of Pop's mantras from the Dutch philosopher who said it's not the 100th time that you cracked a rock or found the rock that it cracks. It's the first 99 times that you hit the rock that helps that. So you got to keep pounding the rock before it finally cracks. And that is also on the side of the ring.
Very, very cool. Bill Schoening, the voice of the San Antonio Spurs, just completed his 20th year as the radio voice of the San Antonio Spurs. Bill, we enjoy it so much, and you were so kind and gracious. You know, the Spurs season is over, but you're kind enough to hang out with us during these NBA playoffs. And I just want to tell you, Shannon and I just love having you, man. It's always a highlight of the week on Wednesday mornings when we talk hoops with you. Thanks so much for taking the time, man. Enjoy the games tonight and for the next week, and we'll talk again next week.
Thanks very much. And Shannon, next week we can talk about the College World Series maybe, because I think the Longhorns have a really chance to make it to Omaha. And somewhere in one of my drawers, I still have a T-shirt that says the University of Texas at Omaha. So
nice.
Chris, I know college baseball is not as big down in San Antonio as it is in Austin because of the Longhorns, but one of the most underrated sporting events in the country is the College World Series in Omaha. It's a slice of Americana that I always tell people that if you're a baseball fan, at some point in time, try to make it to Omaha for the College World Series. And, of course, the Longhorns are in the Super Regional against South Florida, and all they got to do is win 2 games, and then they make it to Omaha.
Yeah, and Bill, we will make it a date next Wednesday. Not only NBA hoops, we will talk Longhorns and College World Series. It's a great idea. We look forward to it. Bill Schoening, have yourself a great Wednesday. Have yourself a great weekend and a great week. We always appreciate it, sir.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Great guy. Voice of the San Antonio Spurs, Bill Schoening, and obviously knows all of his sports across multiple sports and platforms. And he's called a number of Texas Longhorn baseball, football, basketball games over the years back in the day. All right. Coming up, we will scour the world of sports. Make sure you are ready for what happens today in the world of sports. Not only Phoenix hosting Denver tonight, 8:30 on TNT, Astros dominating the Boston Red Sox lately. They beat Boston 7-1 last night. They go at it again tonight at 6:10 at Fenway Park. We will jump back into the world of sports, see what's happening in the NFL as well. She is Shannon Salty Sweeney, Dave Ayler, your soundscape stylist. I'm Chris, with you till 9 on the Chris Duel Show. Anthony, who the heck would the Spurs trade for Damian Lillard? Yeah, maybe a sign-and trade with DeMar, and you throw in a young gun like a Keldon Johnson or a Devin Vassell. I mean, unlikely, but not impossible. Yeah, Frank Ramirez, I agree. 2014 was amazing. Yeah, Anthony, I saw you talking about, I got to do some more research on the Madison player who is now with Arkansas. That's interesting. All right. I'm going to get some beverage for the final segment, and I will be right back. Jason, that was a great to bring up Bill's rings. That was fun. And I had no idea he gave away the first 3 to his family. That's so cool. Where's my mask? There it is. Mask. All right, John Williams. I haven't been able to check yet. Let me go take a look. Yeah, John, I'll look at those videos a little later. After the show, I've got an appointment in Austin at 11:20 at the sinus and snoring specialist. I had this balloon sinuplasty, so it's a follow-up. I'm breathing a lot better. And then before that, though, I've got to go get breakfast for my mom. My mom turns 98 in August, in 2 months. So I've got to fly to my mom's, get her breakfast, go, I got to go, and drive. I did the math. It's like if I move quickly and perfectly, I'll arrive for the appointment like with 5 minutes to spare. If there's no traffic on 35, good luck with that. I am transitioning from coffee to iced tea. Here we come. Welcome back. It is the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney, Dave Ayler, your soundscape stylist, making the show go. So Shannon, I just went to Twitter, and I was switching. I was on the Ticket 760 Twitter account. So I said, "Whoa, I need to be on my Twitter." So you got to be careful, and you do this too, Shannon. You are in charge of social media for AM 1300 The Zone, and you also do Ticket 760. And so I saw something on Twitter. And it's like I almost clicked like, but it's something that I would click like on, and not necessarily Ticket 760. And I'll tell you what it was. Somebody, because we put out the map that NBA Central put out, which was the most hated player by state. And then I saw our good friend Dylan Emery, the blue collar sports dad. And by the way,
this afternoon.
Yeah, he's in for Mike Taylor this afternoon. Always very, very talented broadcaster. So tune into the Mike Taylor show at 4. So Dylan Emery posted a Kawhi gif and said the most hated player in Bear County is this guy, to which, interestingly, the chief meteorologist at the San Antonio affiliate TV, Bill Taylor, agreed with. So I was going to click like, and then I go, wow, wait a minute. I'm on. See, it's not appropriate, I don't think, for Ticket 760 to like a tweet that attacks Kawhi Leonard. So I had to switch over to my account so that I could like it. But when I switched over to my account, the first thing that came up is a tweet from you about 50 minutes ago mentioning what makes you salty this morning. And apparently it is your work computers. Your work computer not exactly taking care of business for you today?
I mean, my work computers never really take care of business. For those that are watching on Facebook Live, anytime I kind of already have RBF just naturally, but anytime you like see the disgust, it's because my computer is just not with it. It doesn't make it easy to do research. It doesn't, my next gen computer, which is like the radio computer today, kept crashing. So I was relying on hearing the music to know when we needed to get out because I couldn't see the clock. And And then don't even get me started on my work laptop. I mean, that's just a brick I carry around in my backpack these days. It's the most useless thing ever.
Wow.
I can't imagine. Like they talk about, so many people during COVID have found ways to be more proficient in their job roles. They don't need the full 8 hours to get everything done. They just need the right setup and the right focus. And these computers add way too much time onto my workday of just sitting here playing well, I guess if I restart it, it'll work.
It's so amazing. In theory, years ago, computers, and they do, I guess, they've revolutionized our lives. But as you document, so many times computers are just creating so much angst for us and crashing and slowing us down. And it is amazing how they can also be the source of just, such difficulty for us.
I just, it's like I said, it's amazing I get anything done some days because this just makes you want to like throw them off a roof. And then I love your social media thing because you're totally right. I mean, we're taught to like the station handles have their own voice, right?
Yes.
And you're not the voice of one specific jock. And during football season specifically, like I live tweet the UT games on both my personal account and the Zone account, and so I am constantly switching back and forth. And my personal account is usually a bit more snarky.
Yeah.
And so
imagine
I have
that.
to, like, make sure I'm flipped on the right one before I hit send.
Yeah. And we've seen that many times over the years. Certain companies or corporate accounts or like a politician. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I thought I was on my other account.
Yeah. So it is it is something to keep an eye on. Now, I got to ask you this, Shannon. Luisa Alanis, who joins us regularly on Facebook Live, writes, what are your thoughts on LeBron James skipping the Olympics? Is that an official story? Have we heard officially that LeBron James is skipping the Olympics? I heard he might, but I didn't hear he absolutely will not play in the Olympics.
He made a comment about, and just to the movie, that the only basketball he'd be playing was with the Looney Tunes.
Okay.
So I don't know that there's official word yet. It's hard, I understood what was it, Rio?
Mm-hmm.
And I would understand this one as well with coronavirus and the effect specifically with players from the Lakers who had the extended season because of their championship run and then the quick turnaround for this season. But LeBron, being this guy who claims like he wants to be the best, would you not want to go and get more rings? Or, in this case, medals to prove your heroics as a player?
See, and maybe I'm weird and old fashioned, and maybe I think if you're among the best players, in this case in basketball, I think it is your patriotic duty to play for Team USA. Granted, and I get it. Yeah. I mean, LeBron's a busy man, and you make a great point. The Lakers had the shortest offseason ever, but now they're done, and they were done before June. Well, I guess early June they were done, but. So he's got time to get ready for the end of July. I just think and again, I've told you, I'm kind of a LeBron fan, but if he chooses not to play, I will be less of a fan. I think it's your country. And Manu Ginobili talks about this. Playing for Team Argentina, he says, is bigger for him than playing in the NBA and bigger than when he played in the Euro leagues. And he said winning gold for Argentina, he said, with all due respect, and I love San Antonio and the Spurs and the NBA, but Manu said that was the biggest thing he ever did in basketball, and that meant the most to him. And I just think if you're one of the best players in basketball in this country and you say, no, I'm busy, I got businesses to run and I'm tired, and then if we don't win gold, I kind of hold you responsible. I'm not happy if indeed LeBron James is making that decision.
Right. And like in 2004, USA won bronze, right? And that was like unheard of and an uproar. And I think rightfully so. when you're the home of the NBA. But I remember from Rio, Carmelo Anthony, he was part of that 2004 team, and then he went on to be a part of Team USA and has now won 3 gold medals. And his emotion after that last one, with the thought that that was probably going to be his last one, right? As he's on the edge of his career, he's never won a ring in the NBA. He's still playing and played a nice role for the Trailblazers this year. But with guys like LeBron maybe not going, I don't know. Maybe we see Melo being a part of that team just to bring some experience to playing for Team USA in the likes of the Olympics.
Yeah. And again, part of the storyline for me that I'm excited about as a Greg Popovich fan, Pop is the head coach. His assistant coach is Steve Kerr, which is kind of cool. And I'm hearing Steph Curry is probably going to play, which makes total sense. Just again, it's Team USA, and B, with Steve Kerr as one of your coaches, that's kind of cool for Steph Curry. But part of what's interesting about Coach Pop in 1972, apparently Pop got to maybe the final round of qualifying to be a player for the 1972 Team USA basketball team in the 72 Olympics. In 72, famously, the Russians beat America, and that's part of what led USA to ultimately go, you know what? We don't have to just roll out our college kids. We can roll out pros, because the Russians were essentially pros. They were like 30-year-old guys, 32-year-old guys playing with
men.
Exactly. Men playing against 18 to 22-year-old boys / men for Team USA. But what I think would be cool, and part of the reason I'm pulling for Greg Popovich, hopefully to lead this team to gold in Tokyo, is Pop was cut in the last batch. I don't know what the numbers were, maybe 15 guys make the team. I'm guessing it's probably less than that, but Pop was like in the final 30 or the final 20, and he was cut in the final cut by Bobby Knight. Apparently Bobby Knight, at the time the coach of Indiana, was the guy who cut Pop. So Pop didn't get a chance to go play for Team USA. It would have been kind of cool to play Russia. Pop majored in Soviet studies at the Air Force Academy, so he knows a thing or two about Russia, which would have been just kind of cool. So I almost feel like it would be a full circle, kind of like redemption / bookends of his basketball life for Coach Greg Popovich to lead Team USA to a gold in Tokyo. It's just one of the many subplots or storylines to keep an eye on in these Tokyo Olympics.
Yeah, and Coach K, who announced that he'll be leaving Duke after next season, of course, was a previous USA basketball coach. And, when he said he was done, it was like, well, who do you get? Well, you can't go down from that.
Right.
You got it. Who's the guy? You got to get Pop. So he's the perfect fit. But I do wonder, as again, he, like you alluded to, like this could be his swan song. Who's next? Is it Steve Kerr? Is that why we're taking Steve Kerr?
It's a great question. Yeah. And I would think Steve Kerr's right there this year, sitting next to Pop. Maybe Steve Kerr wants it. And my goodness, you think of great coaches in America and a guy who was a great player. I would not mind whenever the next Olympics is. I guess it was going to be 2020, so maybe 2024. If Steve Kerr is the next one, that I'd be cool with that.
Yeah. And is that Paris or Los Angeles?
It's a good question. I know LA's coming.
My computers were.
Yeah, I know LA's coming. Well, we sit here all next Olympics. 2024 Olympics. Let's see, 20. No better radio than a guy Googling Paris, France. Ooh. Tony Parker will be involved. It's and if in case you want to mark your calendars, it's July 26th through August 11th, 2024 in Paris.
And I know that sounds crazy, but like we're about to have what we're supposed to be the 2020 Olympics, and then in 6 months we're gonna have the Winter Olympics. So like this being the next Olympics is really like less than 12 months away from us actually having the conversation about the next Olympics. I know
it's crazy.
2024, but that's where we are, folks.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be great. I was touring the the Palace of Versailles a couple summers ago.
Oh, nice.
Tour guide, Parisian. And I was asking her because the London Olympics had happened recently, and they were, they had the volleyball courts like near Buckingham, and they had things at these iconic places all around London where it was cool that they weren't just always in arenas or these manufactured places. So I was asking if they would do things like have the outdoor volleyball played at like the Palace of Versailles or something. What would
Whoa.
happen there? Because you're standing in this, for anyone who's ever been or knows, like it is giant and the garden is giant and there's lots that you could do there. And she was like, I don't know if they would allow it. I don't know if they would do it.
It's a great idea.
Most people aren't very excited about it coming here. They're not looking forward to the cluster of people and all of the madness that comes along with hosting the Olympics. And I was like, that feels like a very French attitude to me.
And that's what we've heard. Did you, when you were in France, because I've always heard, you go into a restaurant in Paris or in France and you as soon as they realize you're an American, and if you don't speak French real well, that they're really kind of snotty to you. Did you experience that?
I've been a couple times. And I have gotten like a lot of places actually have American menus, like English menus that they immediately like, oh, here. And I'm a weirdo and I love cheeseburgers, but I typically like my red meat medium well. I know, blasphemy. And they, and there the thing to do is you're not supposed to recommend, it's supposed to be whatever the chef.
Ooh,
right?
okay.
But they asked me how I wanted it cooked, and I guess I was supposed to say whatever the chef pleases, but I didn't want my cow walking out to me on that burger, so I said medium well, and I got this pretzel look. But the last time I was in Paris, it was the first night we were there. We were walking around. We just landed. We're really tired. We end up at this little spot. And it ended up being amazing because the owner of the restaurant was very much involved and ended up being our waiter. He's the guy who got me to try escargot, which was disgusting. The video of me eating it is probably worse than it actually tasted, but he was great and he was very helpful, and he, so he loved it. He loved that we were Americans and that we were trying these things and that we were, trying to experience all we could on day one of our trip to Paris that time. So I've had it both ways.
Very, very cool. Paris 2024, make your plans. That's a big year. It's going to be an election year, Paris Olympics, and a total solar eclipse over Texas on April 8th, 2024. I'm not letting that one go. All right, Shannon, about a minute left. The poll question, who is the most hated player or players in sports?
I believe LeBron is going to be our winner here for this one. 72% of
wow,
little few votes coming in for Tom Brady, who's taken second with 12%. We've got a bunch of other votes coming in. Someone says anyone in Washington Redskins uniforms. Another says the Brooklyn Nets. I guess they're pretty easy to hate as they are like the current superstar team. And the Houston Astros only with 6% of the vote.
And we got to vote for Johnny Manziel, because he's an Aggie, with one of the three reasons the person gave.
You gotta have reason behind it, so I'm here for it.
All right. Shannon, outstanding as always. Great job.
Thank you, sir.
Woo!
Let's do it again.
Yes, let's do this in 21 hours. Dave Ayler, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And our thanks as well to Scott Manziera, talking baseball in the 7 o'clock hour. Bill Schoening earlier this hour talking NBA hoops with us. You are halfway to the weekend. Make it a great one. Enjoy your Wednesday, and we will see you in 21 hours. Adios, amigos. See ya.